Rain hit the trees like sharp stones as the sky roared above Kirella 4. Commander Rivenhall blinked through blood and smoke. His drop pod cracked open like a broken egg. Fire hissed on the wet ground. His right leg was useless, and his cums were dead. He had crash-landed in a place no human should have been. A planet ruled by ancient alien clans who hated outsiders. He crawled out of the wreckage, hand clutching a survival blade, limping into the forest filled with blood-red leaves that dripped with rain like veins. Everything here pulsed, breathed, moved like it was alive. And then he heard her, a whisper of wind and a flash of movement. Before he could turn, a thin blade pressed against his neck. A figure stood before him, barely 5 feet tall, skin shimmering pale blue with glowing silver tattoos running down her arms. Her hair was braided tight like a warrior's crown, her eyes narrow and burning like ice fire. She didn't speak at first, only watched him, as if deciding whether he was prey or something worse. Riven didn't move. He raised both hands slowly. "I'm not your enemy," he said, voice hoarse. The alien girl's hand trembled on the blade. A flicker of doubt crossed her face. Then, in a soft but sharp voice, she spoke. "You are human. Your kind burns our skies." He shook his head. "I was just flying recon. I didn't mean to come here. I crashed." She studied him for another long moment, then lowered the blade just slightly. "Then you are wounded." "And useless." She turned her back on him. He could have attacked her, but he didn't. Instead, he limped after her. He didn't know her name yet. She didn't offer it. But she didn't kill him either. That was a start. They walked in silence through the forest of massive blood-colored trees and pulsing moss. Every step hurt Riven, but he pushed on. After some time, she stopped and glanced at him. "You limp. You will slow me down." He smiled weakly. "You could always carry me." Her eyes narrowed. "You joke too much for a dying man." But she didn't leave him behind. She led him to a small overhang, dry from the rain, hidden under twisting roots. There, she sat without a word, cleaning her blade. He collapsed beside her, exhausted. The silence between them was thick. Her arms were cut two-sliced during some battle. He noticed her wince as she moved. Slowly, carefully, he pulled out a small medical patch from his uniform and reached toward her arm. She flinched. Her muscles tensed, her breath caught at her throat, but she didn't stop him. He gently touched the bleeding cut, pressing the patch against it. Her entire body shivered like the simple act of being touched with care shocked her. She looked at him with wide, confused eyes. "Why do you help me?" she asked in a low voice. "Because you didn't kill me." "And because that cut will fester if you don't treat it," he replied. Her lips parted, but no words came. She turned away, silent, but her hands were still shaking. The rain outside softened into a low mist. Strange lights floated between the trees like glowing insects. Riven leaned back, staring at the canopy. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Kulri of the Shathel." He nodded. "Riven of Earth." Another long pause. Then she asked, "Why did you not strike me when I turned?" "Because I saw fear in your eyes, not hate," he answered quietly. Her jaw clenched. She stood up, suddenly alert. "Something is coming." Before Riven could react, Kalri pulled him to his feet. In the distance, a low growl echoed deep, guttural, unnatural. It wasn't like any animal he'd heard before. Kalri's expression changed instantly. "Whisper beast," she said. "It hunts by heart sound." Riven's pulse pounded. "What does that mean?" She grabbed his wrist and pulled him close. "Don't move. Don't speak. Don't even breathe loud." The growl came again, this time closer. Branches snapped. Trees bent. Riven held his breath as Kelry pressed her body against his to hide his heat behind hers. Her hands clutched his uniform. He felt her heart thudding wildly through her chest. He didn't know if it was fear or something else. Suddenly, the beast's shadow passed in front of them. Huge, hulking, head like a skull, skin like oil. It paused, sniffed, then moved on. Silence returned, but Kelry didn't move. Her hands still shook. She looked up at him, inches away. You touched me like I was not an enemy. Her voice broke. Like I was real. Riven reached up, brushing a strand of her hair from her cheek. Because you are. She stepped back, confused and frightened, not by him, but by something inside her. And in that moment, something in her changed. But before either could speak, again, a metallic whir filled the air. A security drone flew overhead, recti corp markings flashing. Riven's eyes widened. That's my company, he whispered. But they're not here to rescue me. Kelry grabbed his hand. Then, we run, together. And they ran into the glowing jungle, the forest alive with secrets, with danger, and with a bond neither of them understood yet. Asterisk branches slapped against Riven's face as he ran behind Kelry, every breath burning in his chest. His injured leg screamed with every step, but he didn't stop. The sound of the drone faded behind them, but the forest wasn't quiet. It never was. Strange whispers swirled through the red canopy, as if the leaves themselves murmured secrets in a tongue he couldn't understand. Kelry didn't look back once, her movements fast and silent like a shadow. She moved with purpose. She knew this jungle like it was part of her soul. He trusted her. Finally, they stopped by a fallen tree wrapped in glowing vines. Kelry turned to him, her chest rising and falling. Her eyes searched the forest, then locked onto him. We are being hunted again, she said. The drone was loud. The whisper beasts heard. Riven wiped rain from his brow, panting. I thought we escaped them. Kelry shook her head. They follow vibration, heartbeats, fear. They move through the roots, through the ground. She crouched and placed her hand on the mossy floor, closing her eyes. They are close. Riven looked around. The trees were massive, and the mist thick. Lights flickered again, bioluminescent spores floating like dust. What do we do? He asked. Kelry opened her eyes. We must go to the river. Flowing water hides our steps. But we must be silent. Riven nodded. They moved again, slower. This time, every step was placed with care. Riven could feel his own heartbeat, heavy and loud. He tried to slow it down, but fear pulsed through him. Not fear of the jungle, not fear of the beasts, fear of losing her. He didn't know why yet, but he knew it was real. They crept along a narrow path between twisted roots and glowing ferns. Kelry's sharp eyes scanned every shadow, and she froze. Her hand shot out and pressed against Riven's chest, halting him. Air, she whispered. Riven looked, and his breath caught. The whisper beast stood across the path. It was taller than any man, with limbs like blackened wood and a head shaped like a cracked skull. Its face had no eyes, just a gaping mouth filled with needle teeth. It tilted its head slowly, sniffing the air. Then it dropped to all fours, claws scraping stone. Kelry grabbed Riven's hand and pulled him behind a thick root. Do not move, she breathed. The creature came closer. Its steps made no sound. It moved like smoke, circling the tree they hid behind. Riven could feel Kelry's grip tighten. Her hands shook again, not from fear of the creature, but from being so close to him. His heart thudded in his chest, and he knew she could feel it through her palm. The whisper beast paused. It leaned closer, inches from the tree. A low rattle came from its chest like something dying. Then it sniffed again and moved on. They waited, still as stone. Only after several minutes did Kellery let go of his hand. "We must move. Now," she said. They ran through vines and roots until they reached a steep slope. Below, they heard rushing water, the river. Without a word, Kellery slid down first. Riven followed, half sliding, half falling. They landed in shallow water. It was cold and fast, but safe. Kellery turned to him, water pouring off her skin. "We are safe here, for now." Riven collapsed onto the riverbank, breathing hard. She knelt beside him, watching his face with a strange expression. "You fear the beasts," she said softly, "but you fear for me more." He nodded. "You saved me, again and again. I don't know what this place is, or what you are, but I trust you." Kellery looked away, like those words wounded her. "More than any blade. You should not. My people would end you just for standing near me." Riven smiled faintly. "Then I guess I'm doomed." She turned back to him slowly, her eyes shining like silver fire in the darkness. "Why do you look at me like that?" she asked. "Like I am something soft?" He sat up, closer now. "Because sometimes you are." His voice dropped. "When I touched you before, you shook. Not because of fear, but because no one's touched you like that before." "Have they?" Kellery didn't speak. Her breathing slowed, and her fingers curled against the ground. Her face was close now. Too close. For a moment, the world shrank to just them. But then branches above cracked. Kellery jumped to her feet, pulling him up. From the treetops, something dropped into the water with a heavy splash. Not a beast this time, but worse. A tall, armored figure rose from the river, visor glowing red. "Human," the voice growled. "By order of Recti Corp, you are now property." Riven's blood ran cold. Kellery stepped between them, blade drawn, and for the first time, she didn't shake. Asterisk. The armored soldier stepped from the river, water rolling off his black exosuit like oil. The red glow from his helmet painted the trees in bloody light. Kellery stood in front of Riven, her small frame tense, blade lifted. "Move, alien." The soldier barked. "He belongs to Recti Corp now, by crash clause and contract." Riven tried to speak, but Kellery growled low in her throat like a wild animal. "He is not your property," she said. "Not while I stand." The soldier lifted a stun cannon. "Then you'll fall." But before he could fire, a shrill horn echoed through the forest. All three of them froze. The sound came again closer. This time, Kellery's eyes widened. "No," she whispered. "Not now." Figures emerged from the trees, tall, lean, armor made from bone and dark leaves. Their faces were hidden behind feathered masks. The Shefel, Kellery's people. Riven stared in shock. They moved like shadows, surrounding them without a sound. One warrior stepped forward taller than the rest, hair braided in silver cords, eyes sharp with command. She looked at Kellery with cold fury. "Kellery Valsar," the woman said. "You breathe still." Kellery lowered her blade slowly. "Vesa?" Her voice cracked. Riven looked between them. Sister. The resemblance was their same skin, same markings, but Vesa wore authority like a second skin. Vesa's gaze slid to Riven. "You travel with a human. You let him touch you." The clan behind her murmured. Kellery lifted her chin. "He crashed. I helped him." "He helped me." Vesa spat on the ground. "You helped yourself. You always do. You ran from battle. You abandoned the bloodline." Kellery's hands balled into fists. "You left me behind." Vesa strode forward, circling her like a hawk. "You were weak. A shaking little thing, hiding behind honor. We thought you were dead. We wore black for you." She paused, then turned to the Recti soldier. "This human, he belongs to you?" The soldier nodded. "Yes, now step aside." Vesa smirked. "No, he entered our land. Our laws apply." Then she raised her voice. "He is the prize of my sister, the coward." Riven blinked. "Wait." "What?" Kelry went pale. "Vesa, don't." But it was too late. Vesa raised a blade and pointed it skyward. "Let there be trial. If Kelry wishes to walk among us again, she must prove her worth in the right of blood, and the human, he will fight at her side or die alone." Riven looked at Kelry, stunned. "What is this trial?" he asked. Kelry whispered, "A test of bond, of strength, and of trust." The clan formed a circle in the clearing. The air thickened with tension. Riven's legs still ached, but he stood beside Kelry. "You don't have to do this," he told her. Kelry looked into his eyes. "They think I'm nothing, that I tremble because I am weak. But the truth is, I only shook when you touched me, because I've never been seen before. Not by them, not by anyone." He reached out, touching her arm. She didn't pull away. Her eyes closed for half a breath. Then she turned toward the circle. Vesa stood at the edge, arms crossed. "The trial begins at first sun," she said. "4 opponents, no death, no mercy. You win, and you walk among us. You lose, and the human is ours to carve." That night, they were given a tent separate from the clan. Kelry sat near the dim fire, sharpening her blade. Riven lay on a bed of woven leaves, staring at the shadows dancing on the walls. "They hate me," he said softly. "Not just for being human, for being close to you." Kelry didn't look. "Up, you broke something in me, Riven. Something I didn't know was locked." Her voice was quiet. "That's why I shook. Not from fear, from feeling." He sat up. "What happens if we win?" She glanced at him, her eyes softer now. "Then I become one of them again, and you walk free." He frowned. "And if I don't want to leave?" She didn't answer. Silence wrapped around them like a blanket. Outside, the jungle pulsed with strange light and distant howls dot just before dawn. Kelry placed her blade beside her and lay beside Riven, inches away. "Sleep," she said. "Tomorrow we bleed." As the sky turned pale with morning light, the horn blew once more. The clan gathered in a wide stone circle carved into the earth. Warriors lined the edges, their faces painted with war symbols. Riven stood beside Kelry, heart pounding. Vesa stepped forward, raising a curved dagger into the sky. "Let the rite of blood begin," she shouted. "And may the bond break or burn." From the opposite side, their first opponent stepped into the arena massive, armored, wielding twin blades and a stare that promised no mercy. Riven whispered, "What's the plan?" Kelry drew her weapon and smiled faintly. "We survive. Together." And then the warrior charged. The arena floor trembled as the warrior charged. His boots slammed against the stone, twin blades slicing the air with deadly speed. Riven's instincts kicked in, but his legs were slow. The crash injury still throbbed under his skin. He raised his arm to block, but Kelry was faster. Spun in front of him, her blade singing against steel as she deflected the warrior's strike. Sparks flew. The impact knocked her back, but she stayed standing. Her body was small, but her movements were fierce, like flame trapped in a storm. "Move with me," she shouted. Riven stepped forward, dodging the second blade as it cut through the air where his head had been. He struck low with the blunt end of his weapon, an iron staff borrowed from the clan. The warrior grunted, stumbling as Riven swept his leg. Kelry darted in, slashing at his armor joints. The crowd around them roared with approval. They moved. Together now. Not perfect, not flawless, but together. Kelri leaped over Riven's shoulder, landing behind the warrior and striking from the back. Riven blocked from the front. Blow by blow, they wore him down until finally, Kelri twisted behind his leg, swept him to the ground, and pressed her blade to his throat. The warrior froze. She looked at VESSA. VESSA raised her hand. First trial passed. You live barely. The warrior stood and walked away, silent but respectful. Riven panted, sweat pouring down his face. How many more? He asked. Kelri answered, 3. The second opponent stepped forward. A woman this time taller than Kelri, with silver claws on her fingers and eyes that never blinked. She didn't wait. She lunged like a shadow, aiming straight for Riven's chest. Kelri yelled, "Watch her feet!" But it was too late. Riven took a strike to his ribs. He cried out, stumbling. Kelri launched at the attacker, blades clashing in a blur. The woman was faster than any Kelri had fought. Riven tried to rise, breath shallow. He watched as Kelri parried and spun, barely avoiding the claws. But she was slowing. Her shoulder was bleeding. Her knees buckled once, and Riven knew if he didn't act, she'd fall. With a cry, he threw his staff like a spear. It struck the woman's knee, just enough to unbalance her. Kelri saw the opening. She flipped over her opponent's back and wrapped her arm around the warrior's neck, choking her into stillness. The woman dropped to her knees. Second trial passed. Vesa called out, but her voice held less amusement now. Kelri knelt beside Riven. "Are you okay?" she asked. He winced. "Ribs are cracked, nothing fatal." She touched his side gently. "You shouldn't have stood." He looked at her, eyes soft. "I couldn't just watch you fall." They had no time to rest. The third opponent entered. The ring-a-masked brute with a warhammer so large looked like it had been carved from a boulder. He didn't charge. He waited, watching. "KLR," whispered. "He wants to split us. Divide and crush." Riven nodded. "So we don't separate." They moved as one again. The brute slammed his hammer down, sending shockwaves through the floor. Kelri stumbled. Riven pulled her back. They circled, tested, darted in and out. Riven took a glancing blow to the shoulder. Kelri dodged narrowly, leaving a slice across. The brute's leg. But still, he didn't fall. Minutes passed like hours. The crowd grew louder. Then Kelri whispered, "Strike his blind side." "I will bait," she charged. The brute turned, swinging wide. Riven ran in from behind and struck his hamstring with all his strength. The warrior roared and fell to one knee. Kelri jumped and placed her blade to his throat again. Vesa stood. 3 trials passed. 1 remains. The bond will now be tested, she gestured. "Face each other." Riven blinked. "Wait, what?" Kelri looked at him, confused, until the meaning hit her. Her voice dropped. "The last trial is against each other." The clan formed a tight circle. "Show your truth," Vesa called. 1 walks free, 1 kneels. Kelri stared at Riven. He stared back. No words, no movement. His grip on the staff loosened. "We don't have to do this," he said softly. "We already proved enough." Kelri stepped forward, blade lowered. "They want to see who is stronger," she said. "But strength isn't only steel." Then, to everyone's shock, she dropped her blade. Gasps echoed. She walked to him, close until they were chest to chest. Her hand reached up, touching his face gentle, trembling again. "I don't want to fight you. I want to stand with you." Her voice cracked. "Even if it breaks every rule I've known." The crowd murmured. Vesa stepped forward, furious. "You disobey the final right?" Kelri turned. "No, I pass it in truth." Vesa raised her hand. Then the human, suddenly, a flare exploded above them. A red light burned in the sky. Kelry spun toward it. Her eyes went wide. "It's a recti strike beacon," Riven said, voice cold. "They're coming." The jungle around them began to shake. Ships, drones, soldiers. Vesa screamed, "You led them here." And Kelry reached for Riven's hand. "Then we run. One last time." The air exploded with the scream of engines. Trees bent under the blast as Recti Corp dropships descended like metal vultures from the sky. Red flares lit the jungle canopy. The blood forest, once glowing with quiet life, now roared with fire, smoke, and thunder. Kelry gripped Riven's hand and ran, her breath sharp in her chest. The Shea-Thill warriors scattered into the trees, some drawing blades, some retreating. Vesa shouted commands, but her voice was lost in the chaos. Riven stumbled, his leg, screaming with pain. Kelry stopped, turned, and caught him before he fell. "Come on," she whispered. "You can't stop now." He looked at her through the blur of smoke. "I'm slowing you down." She shook her head. "Then I'll slow too." Her grip didn't loosen. They ran deeper into the forest as plasma fire scorched the trees behind them. Drones buzzed overhead, scanning, hunting. Kelry pulled Riven behind a rock outcrop and forced him to the ground. "We wait," she said, crouching beside him. Her body trembled, not from fear, but from adrenaline. Her breathing was ragged. Riven leaned against the stone, trying to steady his pulse. This is my fault," he said. "They came for me." Kelry turned her face to him. "No, they came because they think they own you. Because they think they can burn what they don't understand." She looked away. "That's how I was taught too." He looked at her, surprised. "You were taught to hate humans?" She nodded. Slowly. "We were told your kind only comes to take. That you break what you touch. That you have no soul for the land." She paused. "But then you touched me like I was something fragile. Something worth keeping safe." Riven's eyes softened. "Because you are." Kelry stared at him, stunned, as if no one had ever said those words to her before. Her hand lifted, unsure, and then slowly touched his cheek. Her fingers were light, shaking again. "You make me weak," she whispered. "But not in the way they mean. You make me feel everything I buried." He reached up and wrapped his hand around hers, then let it stay buried no longer. They sat there for a moment, skin against skin, breath slowing. The jungle screamed around them, but inside that space, time held still. Her forehead rested gently against his. "You touched me like I was more than a blade," she said. "I didn't know how badly I needed that." But before they could speak more, a mechanical hum grew louder. A Recti hover unit floated down, through the trees, scanners blinking, weapons armed. Kelry leapt up, drawing her blade. Riven tried to rise but stumbled. The drone fired. Kelry grabbed Riven, spun, and took the hit to her back. She screamed and fell. "No!" Riven shouted, catching her before she hit the ground. Smoke poured from the wound across her back, non-lethal, but brutal. She gritted her teeth, eyes wide with pain. "I'm fine," she hissed. "Run," but he refused. "I'm not leaving you, ever." The drone hovered in place, charging again. Then, from above, a spear sliced through the air and buried into the drone's sensor core. It sparked and collapsed. Vesa landed beside them, blood on her armor, eyes blazing. She stared down at Kelry. "You protect him," she said, voice hard. "You fall for him." Kelry looked up, defiant. "Yes." Vesa's jaw clenched. "Then go. You've made your choice." She tossed a blade to Riven. "There's a pass through the southern cliffs. Take it before they collapse the valley." Her voice dropped. "I'll hold them here." Kelry's. eyes filled with shock. "You'll die?" Vesa looked at her for a long time. "Maybe, but you're not the same girl who shook in fear. I see that now." She turned and vanished into the jungle, leading warriors toward the fire. Calry and Riven fled. The cliffs came into view jagged, cracked by time, with a narrow trail winding upward. As they climbed, Calry stumbled again. The wound had taken more from her than she admitted. Riven carried her the final steps dot at the top. The jungle gave way to stars. They collapsed together on the stone ledge. Calry lay her head against his chest. "I've always lived by the blade," she murmured. "But with you, I found something soft." He brushed her hair gently, his own eyes wet. "I'm not leaving. Not now. Not ever." She whispered, "Then promise me something. Anything. When the stars are quiet again, will you still touch me like I matter?" Riven leaned close, forehead to hers. "Every day." But before she could answer, a low rumble echoed through the mountains. A Recti gunship rose into the air in the distance, tracking them. Calry sat up, fire in her eyes. "They're not done." Asterisk, the gunship hovered like a silent predator, scanning the cliffside with its red-lit eyes. Calry stood on shaky legs, her shoulder bleeding, her breath shallow, but her grip on the blade was steady. Riven helped her upright, his own body aching with exhaustion. The cold wind whipped around them, carrying smoke from the burning jungle below. "They won't stop," he said, staring at the ship. "They'll chase us to the stars." Calry's eyes narrowed. "Then we stop running." Riven touched her arm gently. "You're wounded, barely standing." She turned to him, expression fierce and tender all at once. "I shook when you touched me because no one ever did with kindness. Because I was trained to be a blade, not a person." Her voice softened. "But now, I want to be more. I want to fight not because I have to, but because I choose to." He nodded. "Then we fight. Together." The gunship fired a scanning beam across the cliffside, bathing them in harsh light. A voice crackled from a speaker. "This is Commander Varin of Recti Corp. The human asset is to be retrieved immediately. Alien companion will be neutralized." Riven looked at Calry. "I'm the asset. You're the complication." She gave him a faint smile. "Then let's complicate everything." They moved quickly, weaving through rock formations. Riven pulled Calry behind a natural stone wall as plasma bolts rained down. The ground shook. A missile struck near the ledge, collapsing a path behind them. They were cut off. Calry drew a glowing shard from a pouch at her waist. "This is a beacon crystal. My people use it to call for help, but only once." He looked at her. "Will your clan come?" She hesitated. "No, but there's an ancient. Skyhawk wild, but bondable. I once fed it when I was young. If it still lives, it may answer." She pressed the shard to the ground. A sharp vibration echoed, followed by silence. The gunship turned, charging weapons again. Riven stood tall, staff in hand, shielding Calry. "If we don't make it, we will," she said, cutting him off. Then a deafening screech echoed from the clouds. From above, a massive winged creature dove, its feathers shimmering in violet light. It struck the gunship with razor talons, tearing into the engines. The vessel spun, screamed, and exploded in the sky, fire blooming like a second sun. They ducked behind the rocks, shielding themselves from the blast. When the fire faded, the stars returned, blinking through the smoke. Calry looked up at the creature as it circled once, then landed nearby with a low trill. It bowed its head to her. She stepped forward, eyes wide, hand on its beak. "You remembered." She whispered. The skyhawk let her climb onto its back. She turned to Riven and reached out a hand. "Come." He hesitated only for a breath, then took her hand and climbed up behind her. They rose into the air, flying above the burning forest, above the war-torn earth, above the fear and the fire. Cowrie leaned back into him. "You changed everything," she said. He wrapped his arms around her. "You let me." They flew for hours, until the forest became a memory below. Finally, they landed in a quiet valley, untouched by fire. A waterfall glowed with soft blue light. Strange flowers bloomed in the dark, and the stars shimmered above like they'd never burned a single soul. They sat together near the water, their hands still linked. Cowrie took a breath. "I don't belong to the clan anymore. I don't belong to war." Riven nodded. "And I don't belong to any corporation. I'm just human." She turned to him. "Then let's belong to each other. No vows, no marks, just truth." He smiled, his heart full. "I'll take that." She rested her head on his shoulder. Her hand trembled again, but it wasn't fear. That it was trust, that it was feeling, that it was something new. "I used to shake when touched," she whispered, "because I thought I had to be strong all the time. But now I know real strength is letting someone in." Riven kissed her forehead. "And I'll always be careful with what you give me." They sat in silence as the night wrapped around them, soft and safe. Somewhere, far from war and fire, a new life was beginning. One where a warrior could shake not from fear, but from love. And where a human could teach an alien what it meant to be seen, held, and chosen, not as a weapon, but as something precious. The end. Asterisk.